Hey guys, this is going to be a video about section 6.S2, which is the chapter 6 supplementary material part 2. We're going to talk about how to find x-intercepts of polynomial functions and how to use them to draw graphs here. So I did pick a selection of questions from the homework, number 7, 9, as well as number 11. These are some of the harder questions, so I did want to go over them in this short video here. So we'll begin with number 7, and the goal of each one of these questions in the middle part is to find the discriminant, find the x-intercepts, and then find the vertex. Okay, so first we'll find the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac. And then I'll put in my numbers here, so 5 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 12 is what I'll have, which is going to be equal to 25. Then let's find a calculator here. 4 times 2 times 12, 96. So this is going to be 25 minus negative 96. You also could have written this as 25 plus 96. Doesn't make a whole lot of difference because the end result either way is going to be equal to 121. So seeing as how that is greater than 0, we'll have 2 x-intercepts. That's a result of having a positive discriminant. So the second part asks us to find the x-intercept, so we're going to go ahead and factor this, which is a little more challenging, but we will work our way through it. Okay. So this time around, I'm going to go ahead and factor by grouping. I'll be looking for two numbers that add up to positive 5, yet have a product of negative 24. So in case you're wondering where I got this negative 24 from, that's 2 times negative 12. Okay. So those two numbers are actually going to be positive 8 and negative 3. And I can split the middle term into those two parts. So positive 8x minus 3x. And then I retain the minus 12 at the end. So seeing as how this is factored by grouping, I will group my 4 terms into 2 groups. First group here, and then the second group. Notice that I drew a plus sign here and then separate the negative part altogether. Okay. And now I'll find the greatest common factor between 2x squared and 8x, which is going to be 2x. And I'll be left with x plus 4. Similarly, for the second part here, I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor of negative 3. And again, I'm going to be left with x plus 4. So now that I have factored correctly, both of these parts will be x plus 4. So I can factor those out. And I'll be left with x plus 4. And then 2x minus 3 as my two factors. So each one of these factors will give us a x-intercept. The first one is pretty easy to point out. It will be negative 4. The second one is a little bit harder to see. You might want to do some work around this one. 2x minus 3 equals 0. So 2x is equal to 3, and x is going to be equal to 3/2. And that will be our other x-intercept. So let's change that there. So far we have found the discriminant, we have found the 2 x-intercepts, and the last part is to find the vertex. So the procedure for finding the vertex for us is to add up the 2 x-intercepts and then divide by 2. In this case, just to make life easier, I'm going to change this to a decimal, so that will be 1.5. So let's change this one as well to a 1.5. And now have negative 4 plus 1.5 divided by, let's undo that, negative 4 plus 1.5, and then divide by 2. So the significance of this number right here is that it is the x-coordinate of the vertex. Okay. So in order to find out what the y-coordinate is, we're going to substitute this number back into the equation itself. And so let's see what we have here. So 1.25 squared times 2 is going to be 3.125 minus 5 times 1.25, which is 6.25, and finally minus 12. So that will leave us with 3.125 minus 6.25 minus 12. So negative 15.125. And that will be our vertex. Okay. This question does take up a lot of space because it is pretty much the hardest question in this section. So it is quite involved. If you make a minor mistake here and there, just give it another try, and you should be okay. So finally, the last part, I believe, what it asks us to do is to draw a sketch of this graph. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that quickly here. This right here is good. It doesn't need to be particularly accurate. I just want us to draw a graph with the x-intercept labeled, and as well as the vertex, so, and the y-intercept. Okay. So we know that the x-intercepts are -4 and positive 1.5. The y-intercept is actually -12. Once again, it is constant term, so it's going to be a lot further down. Somewhere down here. And if you think about where the vertex is, it's actually down here, a little bit further down. So you get a parabola that looks kind of like this. Usually when you draw a parabola, you do want it to be less pointy. So let's try to fix that here. There we go. So we'll continue with the second question, which is number 9. Hopefully we'll have enough space to do this question. Again, we're going to start by finding the discriminant. So that's going to be b squared minus 4ac. So in this case, we have -27. Actually, we don't, because there is no b. X is there. There's 0x. So therefore, there is no b squared to be written. So this will be 0 squared minus 4 times 3 times -27. So I did want to do this question in the video because that might be something that you find a little bit confusing. So I'll take this time to point that out. So we have 4 times 3 times 27. So that will be 324. So that's certainly going to be positive as well, because you have two negatives, one before the 4 and one before the 27. So let's double check that one. Yeah, it is 324. Okay. So the second part is to factor this binomial in this case. So you're going to do the same thing as before. And the first thing you should always check with these is whether or not they have a greatest common factor. In this case, there is. You can actually go ahead and factor out the 3. So I get x squared minus 9. And this is a special case. It is known as a difference of squares. So So I did want to point that out. And the special property of a difference of squares is that both the first term, the x squared, and the last term, the 9, will be squares, perfect squares, and it's a difference, so that's why it's called difference of squares. And to factor it, you simply take the square root of both x squared and the 9, which will give you x and 3 respectively, and you simply have the two factors x minus 3 and x plus 3. So if you were to FOIL this out, you will get x squared minus 9 back. The middle terms do cancel each other. Which means in this case, our x-intercepts are pretty easily found. They will be 3 and negative 3. Or negative 3 and 3. So moving on to the next part, we're going to try to find the vertex. Negative 3 plus 3 divided by 2. So that's 0 over 2, which is just 0. And then we're going to plug in the 0 into our original equation there. So that will give us, well, negative 27. So the vertex is going to be 0, negative 27. Make sure that write that up correctly. And finally, the last part, the y-intercept, is going to be negative 27. So you have everything that you need now to draw the graph of this parabola. Here we go. And then a horizontal line. Okay. So I will label this as negative 3. This is going to be positive 3. The y-intercept is going to be negative 27. And quite simply, you just need to draw a parabola that goes through all 3 points. So again, do your best. Try to make it so that it looks parabolic and does not have a sharp corner. Okay. And that will be sufficient for number 9. So here we have our last example, number 11. I did want to go over this example because the graph on the answer key is a bit small and hard to read. So I'm just going to go over this question with you guys here. In order to figure this out, what you want to do is first to find the x-intercepts. There are actually 2 of these. And they are going to be 0 and negative 1. Okay, you get the 0 from the x, and you get the negative 1 from the x plus 1s. Okay. So hopefully you recall from the class what it means to have 2 of the same root, like we have here. What that means is our graph is going to kind of bounce off of that point and go back in the opposite direction. So we have these 2 x-intercepts. Okay. Fortunately for this question, this is also going to be our y-intercept 0, right? Because it goes through the point 0, 0 here. So all this is going to do is the following. One last thing, of course, it is positive. And that tells you the behavior, which is that it's going to go from quadrant 3 to quadrant 1. So it's going to come from the bottom here, like that. Goes up, not too much. Oh, no, that's not it. It's a double root, isn't it? So it's actually going to go from the bottom, touches the negative 1, comes back down, and then goes back up through the 0, and then continues on. Okay, so hopefully this zoom in version of the graph makes a little bit more sense, and that's it.